For my informative speech, well, first, my name is Jasmine, Newman, as you can see. And for my informative speech, I chose a topic that's a little more on the serious side. I'm going to talk about police brutality. And since I know that police brutality is such a wide and broad subject, I'm only going to just brush the surface with it. And if you want to know more about it, you can talk to me afterwards, and I can tell you some of the sources and sites that I use to look up information about it. So with police brutality, usually when someone says the word police, we often think of positive things like courage, and they have to have a just mindset, and they need to be brave and honest and have integrity. But there are two different types of police. There are the good police, and then there are the bad police. And the good ones are the ones that follow the rules in an orderly fashion, and they do everything that they're supposed to do. But then you have the bad ones who kind of give the good ones a bad name because they use the power that's given to them in a bad way, to where they can intimidate people and just think that they are above the law, so to say. But before we begin with police brutality, let's talk about the police force and the origins of it. When the police force was first created, it was created in the mindset to protect one kind of person, and that was the dominant race, right? But so like even in the times of slavery, there was like a slave patrol, and their job was to, get the runaway slaves and bring them back to their owners, whether they were alive or not, and to only serve and protect the dominant race, which was those of European descent. And not even exactly European descent, because some, like when immigrants came over, they weren't treated as the dominant race at one point in time. But then post-slavery, when America started to get into the period of industrialization and get more technology, it became a little bit more about race, in the sense that it was also race, and then it was also your economic status that also included whether you would encounter police brutality at one point or another. So like the poor laborers would be intimidated by police and be abused by police, but race is the main benefactor of this. So where and why did police brutality start? Police brutality has been around as long as the police force has been around, so for a long, long time. And with a study done by the NAACP, they found that most people wouldn't say that police brutality is only a physical thing. They would say it's anything that includes like them using profanity, or if they are using racial slurs or unnecessary searches along with the physical parts. The first recorded incidence of police brutality was Rodney King, and that was when police brutality, everybody already knew about it, but that's when it was publicized because it was the first incident that was recorded for people to actually see, where there was actual evidence. So with police brutality, some cops often think that the white citizens won't interfere with them protecting them when they're protecting them from groups or races or ethnicities that are inherently criminogenic groups. And that just means those are the groups that are stereotyped as being criminals, as always doing the wrong thing or being dangerous to other groups. Police brutality it reached a height in the 1920s through the 1960s, because that was the period of Prohibition, and then the Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, the Nixon administration, and things like that. So now I'm just going to give you some stats for police brutality. 9 of 102 cases of police brutality resulted in officers being charged with a crime in 2015. Only 9 of them. 37% of unarmed people killed by police were black, despite being only 13% of the U.S. population. Americans killed by cops in the year 2014 was 1,250. In 2015, it was 1,300. And just in 2016 alone, it's already been 260. And it's estimated that every 7 hours, a cop kills an American citizen. And I got all of these stats from copcrisis.com, where they continuously upgrade their information whenever there's something new. So they have like the stories from February of any incidents or any reported crimes. Okay, now I'm just going to give you a couple examples. Let's start with Rodney King, who was mentioned before. He got into a police chase, yes, and when he was detained by police, removed from his car and detained, 4 officers took that as an opportunity to brutally beat him while someone recorded it. And when before the officers were charged, when only 2 of them got charged, it led to the LA riots, where more than 50 people were killed, more than 2,000 injured, and 9,500 arrested for rioting, looting, and arson, resulting in $1 billion of property damage. Let's talk about Oscar Grant. Oscar Grant was 22 years old on the night of New Year's in 2009, where he and some of his friends were in Fruitvale Station, and they were being taunted by police and threatened by police, while Oscar was on the ground with hands and a knee on his head and neck. And then he was shot in point-blank range in the back by an officer while he was already on the ground unarmed. And then after that, the officers continued to threaten his friends that they would kill them also. And there's a movie on that actually called Fruitvale Station. And a lot of people, when they think of police brutality, they think that the only people being targeted are African-American males of young adult range, but age and gender are no longer factors. Ayanna Jones was 7 years old while she was in her house, and police decided to do a no-knock raid looking for a guy who sold drugs, basically. So, and there was an episode of 48 Hours where they actually shot the film of when they did the no-knock raid. And this was the wrong house, actually. They came to her house and it wasn't even the right house. So they threw in a concussion grenade, and then they came in and shot Ayanna in the head. And afterwards, her grandmother and her father were in the house as well, and there were other kids too, and they forced them to sit in her blood while they figured out the situation. Then we have Trayvon Martin, who was 17 years old, and he was shot by a neighborhood watchman by the name of George Zimmerman in Florida, and he was 17 years old, and he was shot for looking suspicious when police told him not to get out of the car and go check it out. Okay, now effects on everyone based on police brutality. Racial profiling often leads to violence. So when police act on unjustified racial generalizations that are often untrue, it just leads to a bad situation that has to come out to everybody else. And it further separates groups based on race and stereotypes, and it creates an us versus them mentality, which is also not good. Some laws and policies that are in place with this: the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders, better known as the Kerner Commission, was created by Lyndon B. Johnson in the year 1968. And basically what they do is they investigate disorders and make recommendations for averting future problems. So they try to stop problems before they come up. And during one of their studies, they acknowledged that blacks see police as oppressors protecting the interests of the white community more so than themselves. And then, as we know, discrimination and racial profiling is illegal, but they are not highly enforced. So as we can see, police brutality is a very important issue in America, whether it happens to you or not, because it affects society as a whole, as we can clearly see from just watching the news or just from reading different articles that appear today. And it's not just a new issue, it's an issue that's been going on for quite some time now. And the racial and ethnic concentration of poverty reinforces negative stereotypes held by the affluent, and that was a direct quote from Roots of an Urban Dilemma by Malcolm Holmes. So with police brutality, police are sworn in to serve and protect citizens, not to use their power to intimidate them or to harm them in any way. But one thing that you can do to stand up for it, other than reporting it if you see it or raising awareness about it, is to just know your rights if something were to happen. So just know what you can do in a situation. And police brutality not only exists because of the underlying theme of racism and stereotypical mindsets, but also because of the lack of training that police have, and also because of the lack of stable organization. So this ties into all three of the pillars, because without the ethical leadership of the police, there is no community engagement, because communities will be separated. And if they don't have cultural competence, then they don't know how to handle certain situations with different groups of people. Thank you.